It's the 60th anniversary of Reverend Edwin Muller's prison ministry. You're going to be hearing about different aspects of Ed's life. And every table has this. Take a look at it. And you're going to have to choose who takes it home. That's his life. This is his life. We have all the significant steps of Ed Muller's life, his children, his family, his friends. I met him in 1977. I was a student across the street, and my brother had just been killed that summer. And I came to Union, and if you remember, Amin came to the UN. I was ambassador. Idi Amin came to the UN, and my brother was a lawyer, was studying to be a lawyer. And so Idi Amin invited the student leaders to come home to Uganda, and he disappeared all of them. So I came to Union that summer, in 77, little lost, because my brother was my hero, and he looked at me, I looked at him. So I meet Ed Muller, and I understand that they take students to Greenhaven on Friday, and so I joined immediately because I was lost, totally lost. Then my sister was killed with her two boys, and my brother in 77. And then in 78, I took a leave from seminary to go and be with Ed Muller as full-time seminarian. So it saved my life, meeting with Larry and Barmer and Lonnie and Eddie Ellis, who some of you know, some of you don't, who have been with Ed Muller. His daughter is here. No, she's not. She was. She was sitting right there. But she's responsible for this. Susan is responsible. Give Susan a big hand. Where is she? Give her a big hand. That's Ed's daughter. She's responsible for this. And you have to choose who takes it home to her. It was 20 years ago?
Yes.
When this was done, you know, it's a symposium, we used to have it, so. And my father, when my father came to visit in 79, I brought him to Greenhaven, to Exodus. He met all of you. I have a picture of my father, Greenhaven. My cousin James, who couldn't be here, he's in Canada, he had a terrible accident. He was driving with his wife, and two young guys were racing each other. And they tried to pass each other, and they hit his car, so it span, and he derailed him, so both Jackie and James are hospitalized as we speak. But he was going to come, but he couldn't come. So we come to welcome you to this event to celebrate 50 years. 50 years, 2 decades. That's a long time. Yes. Most things, if they last 2 days, give a hand, give a big hand. So that 2 decades of ministry, Ed Muller started out at Rikers 60 years ago. 10 years later, he joined the state system, and all of us are beneficiaries of his, let us say, his love. And James sent a note. I want to read you the note, and then I'll invite the pastor of Western Hills United Methodist Church, Little Rock, Arkansas, to come. But before that, I want to read you James's message. Rev, no words can describe or express my gratitude to you for your generosity, your tolerance, and your patience. Perhaps the simplest word I can say, Rev, is thank you, thank you. Thank you for more time than time can tell. You always occupy a special place in my heart. And then he says, I have a reminder of you every day before me, because my oldest son is called Edwin. He named his oldest son, Edwin Muller. And now to continue with the program for the day, I'd like to ask, where is Jackie? You know, all of us claim to be done this. Jackie, my father, did this. You know, we put our name on the program. Come here, Jackie, come. Come. Yeah, we put our names in the program and the committee. Jackie McLeod did it. Give her a big hand.
I had said that I would not be speaking today. So, I don't know.
I know.
But I just want to say that it was my pleasure to put this together. In addition to working with the committee for the program and raising the money. And I did it because of the special man that Reverend Muller is. And I know that Lonnie would have said, Jackie, do this. Okay, so thank you all for coming, because I was a nervous wreck. I feel a lot better now. But thank you all for coming. And it's only fitting that we share and honor Reverend Muller and the Exodus and the major impact that it has had on the outside. Thank you.
Thank you. And people have come from near and far to celebrate Exodus and Rev. And now I'd like to call upon the pastor of Western Hills United Methodist Church, Little Rock, Arkansas, Pastor Nathaniel Wayne. Come, please, sir. Give him a hand. Come on, sir.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Come, thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Eternal God, as we gather together on this occasion, we remember with great thanksgiving that you are the ground of our hope, and it is in you that we live, move, and have our very being. God of all creation, we celebrate your love and power in our lives. How you have kept us each and every day. We pause now along our journey to give you thanks for your servant, our friend and colleague in ministry, Ed Muller. How grateful we are for his strength, for his ability to nurture those who have been in his care. Continue to strengthen him on every leaning side. Dear God, as we fellowship one with one another, and remembering those days which are past and gone, we declare how we got over it. We thank you for the gift of breaking of the bread, and those who have prepared it for us, that we may continue in your service. We ask these things in the name of whom loves us. Let the people of God now say, amen.
Amen.
Now, I have traveled about 1,500 miles to be here today. And so when I received the invitation to come, they said, give a invocation and then give a word of greeting. So I'm going to do as I have been asked to do, so let me do this. It's with great joy that I look into your faces this afternoon as we celebrate the life of a dear and treasured friend and colleague. We know Ed as a preacher, a theologian, a pastor, administrator, and most of all, the servant of the Most High God. I met Ed Muller nearly 50 years ago when he was serving the United Methodist Church in New City, and I was in Paris, New York. I remember him because he had the distinction, if you visited his church, in any Sunday morning as a visitor, he'd be knocking at your door by 3 o'clock to welcome you and to invite you to be a part of that parish and welcome you to the community. There is a special word for this occasion. It's found in the book of Isaiah. I heard a voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send?" I need someone to go to Green Haven. I need someone to go to Fishkill. I need someone to go to Beacon. I need someone to go to Comstock. I need someone to go to Clinton. And when you get there, I want you to tell them that no one is beyond restoration, that no one is beyond hope. I need a person who will extend my love. I need someone to take on the system. I need someone to talk to superintendents and guards who have a bad attitude. I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send?" I need someone who is strong, who is dedicated, who will speak to the injustice. I need a person who has character. I need a person who is competent. And I need someone who is committed. I need someone to tell them about the story of Moses and Exodus. Someone who will say there is a bright side somewhere. Ed has in his DNA. Dad was PhD from Drew University. And so we have come to honor a person who is a prophet, who takes care and remembers who Jesus called the least of men. Lastly, I spent 10 years in prison. Wherever they sent me, I could count on Ed to pay a visit to me, to provide a word of encouragement. And many of you all can testify to that. There will be a special place for Ed Muller when we all get to heaven.
Amen. Amen.
Let the church say amen.
Amen.
He's that kind of person. So I'm delighted to be here. I think about so many persons that are not here. But I think about that hymn that says, "How happy are the saints above, who once were sorrowing here, but now they taste a mingling love and joy without a penny." And so Ed Muller said to Jehovah, "Here am I. Send me." Thanks be to God.
The pastor of Western Hills United Methodist Church, Little Rock, Arkansas. Another big hand for him. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And now to carry out the day, the charge for the day, if you look at this, you'll see John Ducksworth all the way to the left when Ed gets the award from Salvation Army. Let's give it a hand to John, the original Exodus Professor NYTS, and my friend, John Ducksworth, the charge of the day. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
When I saw Good morning. When I saw the program that I had been assigned the task of giving a charge today, I said, what do I say? And then I thought about, this would apply because in this crowd, you could relate if I said that. I thought about Patton, giving a charge to the troops before D-Day. But then I thought about maybe what would Vince Lombardi say, to his team, or Pat Riley, what would he say? And then I thought about, if I was only talking about those who had walked the walls of Green Haven, the charge that I would give would be saying something like this. Now it's time for us to get up off our butts and do the work that Ed has charged us to do throughout our lives. And whatever that may have been. But I would have given a lot more energy and things like that. And for those who have benefited from his ministry, because he's ministered far beyond Green Haven. He's ministered to people who have never been inside a prison wall, or who have been in one type of prison or another, abuse, addiction, pain, suffering, calamity, tragedy. And I've said this to people for over 25 years, but I don't know if I've ever said it to you. I love you. I do. So it's my joy that I get to stand here this morning. One of the things we did back in Green Haven, we had an opening right. And I remember we spent months trying to get it together. And at the time we were working on this opening right to the meeting, I was one of those that sat there and said, "This is not going to mean anything. This has no relevance. I'm not going to use this when I get to the street." I've been home for 35 years. I still use it. I still relate to it. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask you to look at the program and join with me. I'm going to take some liberty here and actually stand. I'll be the leader and you be the group. Let us come to terms with life.
Our life is a human struggle. The struggle is painful indeed. The struggle holds death and life.
Out of the struggle of the now, we will create the human world of the future.
The past is approved, the present is received, and the future is hopeful.
Be seated. Thank you, and Patel.
Thank you. John Ducksworth, Professor NYTS, original excellent person. As John said, we have the opening right, the contract. That was part on the back, on the study page. Those were three things. The contract, opening right, study page. And none other than the original man himself will come and tell us why we're celebrating him. Ed Muller, come on. Let's tell us why we're here today.
I can't resist telling a story about Matt Brady. When he was at Fishkill, Bishop Matthews came to visit him. Now, Bishop James K. Matthews was a decorated war hero. He had been on, I think he was a chaplain, and buried hundreds and hundreds of soldiers. But the day before he came to visit Brady, he had been the speaker at the War Memorial in Washington, D.C. with President Clinton. The next day he came to see Reverend Grady. And I was designated to be there to receive him at the facility. And the facility was really, by the way, it was like 5-degree weather outside. It was, I think, January. And Bishop Matthews was married to E. Stanley Jones' daughter, who was one of the most famous Methodist missionaries who had written over 40 books in India, a personal friend of Gandhi. And the bishop's wife was not on the gate clearance. And so they said the bishop's wife had to stay outside, to sit in the car in 5-degree weather. And they didn't send an escort right away. I mean, we waited almost a half hour. I finally said to the bishop, come on, I'll escort you. We'll go over and see Reverend Grady, and he administered Holy Communion and so forth. When I came back and the bishop left, I was summoned to the superintendent's office. And they read the riot act to me. And I said to them, I said, look, I know Commissioner Kuhn. He respects soldiers and veterans. And I said, if you want me to deal with this, I'll call the commissioner. Because he'll be outraged the way you treated the bishop and his wife. Anyway, I think 20 years later, I was testifying on behalf of the chaplain who had been brought up on charges, and the arbitration person said to me, you know, they tried to fire you 3 times. And nobody ever told me. But one of those times was the incident with Bishop Matthews, so I thought you would appreciate that. My 60 years, I started as a chaplain intern at Rikers Island when I was still in seminary. I'd also been appointed, I'd been ordained and appointed to a church in Upper Saddle River. And I did my clinical trainings, some of that at Rikers Island, also at Methodist Hospital in Brooklyn. But you know, as you look back over the years, you remember things vividly. I remember the first inmate I worked with at Rikers Island. His name was Clifford Cross. And as we got to know each other, I found out he was a Native American from the reservation up on the Canadian border. And you know, Native Americans are always given names that tell a little something about them. You know, the great hunter and so forth. Clifford's name was Clifford Cross the River. He was a swimmer. And he and his friends used to swim across the St. Lawrence River and hang out in Canada. And I said to the chaplain supervisor at Rikers, you know, it probably wouldn't be a good idea to put Clifford out on the outside working. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, he was on the outside working. And 2 days after that, he was gone. He swam to the Bronx. Ended up back on the reservation. When I was pastor in New City, New York, the county jail was 2 blocks away from where I lived. And you know, there's a state law that said any religious leader in charge of the congregation has free access to any jail or prison in the county. Unlimited access. You can go in the middle of the night if you want, show up, and you can go anywhere in the jail if you want. I asked the judge one time, what does that mean? They can visit at their pleasure. He said, that's what it means. And the same privilege it even says the governor, judges in the Court of Appeals, so forth, and every religious leader has free access. So I used to walk the tiers in the county jail. I learned about diesel therapy there. You know, Father Berrigan, when he was a prisoner in the federal system, wrote about diesel therapy. That's when they put their problems on a bus and sent them somewhere else. One day I was walking the tier and one of the inmates said, Rev, you got to go up in the 3rd tier. There's an old man up there who's senile, doesn't even know his name. So I said to the chief jailer, I said, I'm going to go up on the third tier. He said, could you come back this afternoon? We're just getting ready to feed everybody and take the count. I said, sure, I'll come back. Came back in the afternoon, the old man was gone. They had put him on a bus. He had come on a bus from, I think, New York City to Rockland County. Social Services put him in the county home. And the people in the county home couldn't handle him, so they had him arrested for disorderly conduct, put in the county jail. And when I started to inquire about him, the county jailers put him on a bus to somewhere else. Diesel therapy. Well, when I got to Greenhaven, I want to talk about the early years of Greenhaven and Exodus. When I got to Greenhaven, I learned a lot about state prisons. The first inmate I interviewed had just finished 30 years. And I said to him, how's it feel to be going home after 30 years? He said, I'm not going anywhere except the state of Virginia. I owe another 30 years in Virginia. I remember a man who came to state prison in 1911 in a stagecoach and was still in prison in 1980. The world of Greenhaven prior to Attica was a closed world. There was no contact unless you had someone who came to visit you. The visiting room was mainly the main source of polio. You know, newspapers were censored, the radio was censored. And it was a cut-off world, and there were no volunteers coming into Greenhaven, except an occasional religious teacher, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist, some of the smaller groups. I remember when I took my first clerk home, I always drove my clerks home when they were released. He'd been released after 20-some years. He had been in prison for killing his father, who was a policeman, a pretty violent man. He used to shoot at the neighbor's house if they made too much noise. Charlie told me he used to shoot at him, wing him through his pant legs with bullets. One day they both had guns and he killed his father. His favorite aunt was his father's sister. When I took Charlie home after 20-some years, when we went through the lobby, they gave him a big bag of mail. Back then, if somebody wrote to you and they weren't on your correspondence list or visiting list, the mail went in your personal property. They never were told that you didn't get the letter, and you never were told that the letter was there. So when Charlie was released, he got this big bag. There were 14 letters from his favorite aunt, the sister of his father. She told him in those letters that she didn't blame him for what he did. His father was a violent man. She only wrote 14 years before she died. And they never had an opportunity to reconcile or even to know what was that. That was the closed world of Greenhaven. And we started the first Exodus cadre in 1968. That's why we're celebrating this year. And that cadre went to work. We use the term cadre because it implies a disciplined and intentional group that was serious about solving problems. And we identified 1,200 problems that men in Greenhaven faced, from global problems, national problems, city problems, Greenhaven problems, personal problems. I think one guy told our research person there were 20 pages to that analysis. And we created a model to solve about what we identified as the 35 most important problems. And that model, comprehensive model, included the Exodus Cadre, a long-term program, included the first college program in the state. It included a short-term contact program. Where's Jeff Smith's picture in them? I mean, not Jeff, but Dave Spencer.
Jeff Spencer.
Yeah, Dave Spencer came to work with us to implement this model. Dave had been a civil rights lawyer in Harlem, had served a lot of time in prison. He had been in Clinton in the 1930s. But Dave and worked with us to help put this model together that included the contact program, which was short-term. Any lifer in Greenhaven. By the way, back then, there were men who had a parole date that were 2 years over their date because you had to have a job and a place to live. Our model provided a job and a place to live for every lifer in Greenhaven and all the people who were in our college program, our cadre program, and so forth. We had outside workshops, Mount Vernon, Poughkeepsie, and Harlem. We provided residence. We had 12 rooms at New York Theological Seminary's dormitory, which at the time was on 47th Street. And we put our men right in with the seminary students, and that worked really well. We always used rented rooms. I think in Poughkeepsie we had several rented rooms. We also at one time had 12 of our college guys on Marist College campus. We put this all was working before Attica. And by the way, I want to talk about this a little bit in detail. Our program was based on imaginal education, something I learned at the Ecumenical Institute in Chicago. If you think of a 3-story house, the basement, the main floor, and the attic. The basement is our subconscious or unconscious, where images are formed. This is based on Kenneth Boulding's book called The Image. But the basement was the unconscious, where images are formed. The main floor was our emotions and feelings. The attic is our intellect, our rational thinking. And what goes on in the basement at the unconscious level affects the main floor and the attic. And Boulding says it's messages that are important at an unconscious level. Let me talk to you about one. Our first college program, I was just asking Jeff Smith because he was in it. Charlie Acker said there were 22 in that first class. That was way too many. Jeff thinks there was around 12. But when we started that first, by the way, I asked Charlie Acker one time, what was the most amazing thing he ever saw in prison? And he said, those first guys going to college. I never dreamed I would ever see somebody in prison go to college. And, but anyway, the staff at Greenhaven, they were muttering, prisoners can't do college work, it's just an inferior operation. Most of the prisoners thought the same thing. They put down the program as well. Well, out of that first class, Jeff Smith is here, became the first lawyer to be admitted to the bar in New York State, graduated from Yale Law School, graduated from Vassar College, Princeton University. And was recently cited in the New York Times as one of the #1 class action lawyers in all of New York. In that class was also Charlie Spain when he got released and earned his MSW. And I think somebody told me he earned a doctorate in social work. In that first class was Jerry Hooks. He was the first guy out the door to go to Marist College after he had earned his two-year degree. And he graduated from Marist with high honors. And then went back to his home in Detroit, where he earned a master's degree and worked in youth work in Detroit. This was coming out of this first college class that nobody thought would be anything. Well, in terms of imaginal education, you can imagine the message that hit the facility at an unconscious level. And suddenly we had big lines of guys who wanted to get into college. And by the way, most college professors who teach in prison will tell you their best students are in prison, not outside on the campus. All you Bard guys who are here probably have heard that from your Bard professors as well. And certainly we heard it from Bill Weber and the seminary professor. So that's imaginal education, changing images at a deep level. There's Sheila Rule was here, and she's published some pretty nice books. book's Long Journey Home, they talk about YG. This is a guy who came to prison as a young man. He wanted to be called Young Gangster. Negative self-image at a deep level. 20 years later, he still wanted to be called YG. The guards were calling him G.O. Game's over. But you see the work that has to be done at an unconscious level. And every time somebody comes out of our Exodus program, Ronald Day comes in, once a year or so, we ask him to come back to our group at Eastern. And it's a powerful image, a powerful message at an unconscious level. The fact that he's working now to finish his PhD and he's vice president of the Fortune Society. So anyway, I lost my notes here. And I'm sure I'm going to miss mentioning particularly. But by the way, I did want to also just, well, I'll do that in a few minutes. In 1971, Attica happened. Now, this model that I just described was in full operation at Greenhaven. Greenhaven was the only prison in the state that stayed open, that did not lock down. And the warden gave us credit. The reason they didn't lock down was because everything we had started and everything we were doing had so impacted the facility that I think nobody wanted to risk losing all these programs. Now, after Attica, I don't know if you remember, John, whether it was 200 or 500. 3 or 4 days later. By the way, where is Terrell? Tyrone, is he here?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, Tyrone was in the yard at Attica and came down with that group to Greenhaven. Do you know how many there were?
About 500.
That's what I thought, 500. And I remember I walked those tiers taking notes, from my mother, help my so-and-so, tell them I'm all right. Dave Spencer and I sat up all through the night. I remember Dave would be on the phone 3, 4 in the morning, calling mothers and wives to tell them that their people were okay. But with Attica came a whole bunch of guys to Greenhaven, Tyrone, Eddie Ellis, I can't remember who else. A lot of them got involved in our programs, but also what came after Attica was an inundation of programs. There was now money available to colleges. I remember we started our first college,
South 40. South 40.
Yeah, South 40 Corporation. The way we got connected with South 40, my clerk, Napoleon Harris, got released and went to work in a street academy in Harlem, which was sponsored by the South 40 Corporation, which had just incorporated. Governor Vanderbilt, Helen Vanderbilt, Bill Bradley from the Nixon, J. Edwin Muller from the State Assembly. They were all on the board. Napoleon told them about our model. And so Vanderbilt, Helen and Bill Vanderbilt came to Greenhaven, looked at the model, and said, let's do it. You know that feeling, when you have an idea and you sit around and complain, if only we had money, Vanderbilt said to me, if you'll run it, I'll raise the money. And he did, and I did. And our model was born a couple of years before Attica. Time? Yeah, okay.
You come back.
Yeah. So anyway, what got launched at that early stage, by the way, I've identified 3 phases to Exodus. There's the first generation, 1968 to 1980. The second generation, 1980 to 1995. The third generation, 1995 to 2016. And now, today, we're facing the 4th generation of the future. But before I finish, I just wanted to acknowledge my colleagues who worked with me in the Exodus programs in 4 facilities today. Gordon Brown, who is our Exodus program coordinator. Father Ford. Gordon's been working with us for over 20 years. Father Ford, he and I met back in '71, even earlier. Yeah, okay. And he went to the West Coast for a while, but then came back when he retired and has been working with Exodus. He does a brilliant job with Lifelines with our groups. Anthony Lucky is here. He comes once a month to our group in Greenwood, and when he comes, we put a spot on the agenda called Lucky Time. And, I count Larry White as still an Exodus alum. Because Larry's been, well, that's a long story. And then John Duxworth, Eric Waters, and Father Sabuni are doing, they use a lot of our material at Sing Sing. I just want to say, this will be my last comment. We have 2 distinguished Episcopal priests here today. The Reverend Canon Patero Sabuni and the Reverend Canon Ford. The title Canon is a high honor.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Give it a round of applause. We're going to stay for time. I thought we were going to stay for time, but Sheila's books are downstairs. Is the bookstore open today? Your books are down there. If you want to pick up the whole set, you're going to buy all her books down there. Yeah. Sheila's books. Yeah, they're down. I was going to introduce you, but he stole my thunder. I have you on my list to introduce you, but Superintendent Miller is here. Superintendent, yes, sir. Would you have Superintendent Miller? John Collins over here. John, yes, John Collins is here. But moving on to the program, as Ed mentioned, we have Jeff Smith, who will come and share with us his reflection in Exodus, and then we'll continue the program with the panels to really hear the past approved, the future is open, and the present is here. So let's give it up for Jeff. Jeff Smith.
Thank you, sir. Well, my panel shrank too long. I've learned actually a lot sitting here and listening to the beginnings of Exodus. I remember the catechism. It wasn't part of the catechism. It wasn't part of much. I ran this cell study program in this prison school. Cell study is not self-study, it's cell study. You do it in your cell and you send materials to the inmates, and I did it. They gave me that job because I had a few college courses under my belt before I got there. And they said, and the warden said, in Sing Sing actually, he said to me, what could you teach? I said, math or science. And he said, math, huh? What's 60 divided by a half? He said, 120. He thought about it real hard. He said, oh yeah, you're right. I could teach. But at Sing Sing, they put me in the garbage pail. When I got to Greenhaven a couple of months later, they put me in running the self-study program. And I was teaching the things I was really cut out to teaching, like electronics, plumbing, carpentry, all these things. But they had great programs. They did what was then called program learnings. They were cardboard boxes, and you scrolled up, there was a question, and you scrolled up and it gave you the explanation and the answer. And so I would just send these out to guys staying one scroll ahead of them, like any good teacher. And then we got in a whole bunch of new ones. And they were real academic study things. So I set up courses in chemistry, biology, math, science. And the warden found, the deputy warden found, Saunders found out that I was teaching chemistry, which to him meant bombing. So he took me out and put me in the kitchen. And eventually, I got out of the kitchen and I went into South Florida. And they told me this thing about imaginal education. And I thought imaginal education, the way it was explained to me, was that people get in jams because their image of themselves, their self, is very different from the way the rest of the world sees them. Later, when I was taking courses in, say, South Florida College program, I took Psych 101, was one of the ones they offered. It was taught by a fellow who was a professor at Vassar. And I got this experiment in mind, and I made up a chart of personality characteristics from Maslow or one of those guys who studied in Psych 101. And I passed it around. I asked 5 guys, 5 prisoners, to some of whom I didn't know very well, to cooperate with this experiment. And I wanted them to rate themselves, these characteristics. And then I wanted them to tell me 5 of their closest friends in the prison. And I gave each of their friends the charts to rate that guy. And I saw a really big difference here. Now, of course, I wasn't a scientist and I didn't have a control group. But that was very interesting to me, that there were these gaps between how people, even their best friends, how people thought of themselves and how even their best friends thought. It ended up, I was the first one in Green Haven to get the associate's degree, in large part because I had a couple of courses earlier that I could transfer in, particularly the sciences, which we weren't allowed to teach because of bombs. And I did, in the speech course, I did give a speech on how to make an atomic bomb. But that led me, in the meantime, I had exhausted all my appeals. I was in jail for the major crime. I'm going to live long enough to see my crime legalized, marijuana. And I never thought I'd live long enough, but it looks like I am, even here in New York. So I don't have to move to Canada. But actually, the great tragedy in my life, is that I'm now allergic to marijuana. Story of it. But it's sadly true. What's the story? Because my appeals were exhausted, everything had gone, and there was no help, no relief. A female law student from Columbia University came up. They had a program that, which I then worked in years later, not at Columbia but at Yale, of giving legal advice to inmates. And she came up and she took my stuff and she looked through it all. And then one day she comes back with a professor in tow. And she said to me, this was, I think before I actually finished the degree, but it was around that same time. And she said to me, I'm here to tell you that we don't think there's anything we can do to help you, except I would like to do a clemency. And he is here, the professor, he's here to make sure I tell you that it won't work. It worked, and I think it worked. It worked in large part because of the college degree. It was the first one. I've always said, I don't know, but there master's degrees given out in the same thing? No. So I was the first one in New York State, earned inside. There was a big New York Times story about it, and my local, well, I was a Long Island kid. The local Long Island newspapers were all very upset at the Times scooped them on this. So they all started coming up and doing interviews and stuff. Now, Rockefeller, that year, was campaigning for what we all know as the Rockefeller laws. The actual original Rockefeller laws were medical treatment for drug addiction.
Right.
They weren't this penal idea. But he was then trying to change it. And apparently, I found years later, bumped into this woman who did my clemency petition, and she said, well, she had tried to get a job in the governor's office. And when they found out that she was the one who wrote my clemency petition, they said that the governor was ready to commute a sentence to life. because they got so much litigation, so much mail over it. But at the time I didn't know that, and but there were really a lot of letters going in. And so Bill Vanderbilt, who's a wonderful guy, Bill wrote a letter to Nelson Rockefeller. Dear Brother Rockefeller, blah, 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 and we have this program, I'm sure you're aware of it. And Jeff Smith's a great guy, and he's got a college degree, and you know, you should grant his funds. And he got back a form letter from somebody in the governor's office, probably the clemency department bureau. And then he wrote back, and I didn't know about this until he folded them all up, put them in an envelope, and gave them to me at my wedding. Then he wrote back, handwritten, on personal station. Nelson, on such and such date, I wrote to you about getting Jeff Smith out of jail. To date, I've heard nothing. What needs to be done? And he got back a handwritten letter from Nelson Rockefeller. Bill, so sorry, they didn't realize who you were. Don't worry, we're taking care of it. Now, I tell you that and say the justice system, unfortunately, hasn't changed. And unless you have a Bill Vanderbilt or somebody like that who's your guardian angel, you are probably in big trouble if you get yourself involved. And it's still true, with one exception. And I think this is right. You probably know better than I do. Nobody who's earned a college degree inside prison has gone back to prison. There's probably some wiggle somewhere where somebody got mad at a guy in the bar and killed him or something. But basically, it's next to coming out to an intact, caring family, it's the best predictor of success always, is having a college degree, having an education. And it does go back to this imaginal education concept, that you begin to know yourself, you begin to know what's going on around you, who people are around you, and that's how you intervened in my life. And I knew it was you in part, but I thought it was me. one last joke story, but true. When Bill Gardner was teaching the speech course, I found out from him that there wasn't a college program, but there was just the imaginal education program. And I found out from him that he was an adjunct faculty at Dutchess Community College. And I says, why the hell aren't we getting credit for this? And he said, I don't know, I'll ask. And I wrote a letter to Bill and Helen Vanderbilt, excoriating them for being useless rich people. And saying, you really should make it a college program. Little did I know that was already in the works. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Jeff Smith. Thank you. He was the first graduate of the first program in prison. And watching Mr. Johnson walk in. What you're in Exodus, what year? 90? And I'm sitting next to Larry White, who was in Exodus 6 to 8. 6 to 8. I thought, wow. Well, you know, Exodus lives on. So I believe Ed Compass had an emergency, and Ken with his wife is dying. I went to say yesterday. Yeah. Ken with his wife is dying. She's in a hospice program, so he can't come. He's visiting with her. So we're now going to move on to the program with our panel, our first panel of the present received. And let's welcome Eric Waters, author, teacher, and my friend.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can we, you know who you are, if you want to first panel? Can we just get you up here because time is of the essence. So this morning on my way here, I drove past the Apollo Theater, and there was a long line, people already waiting to get tickets. And as I heard people speaking today, I said, damn, we need the Sandman here. Now, we have 5 men, six men. And I know all of them less than 6 degrees of separation. And they all can talk for the 30 minutes that we all allotted. I have my phone here, and I'm really tempted to set the timer to 5 minutes and give you all 5 minutes. And so hopefully we can move this along. So I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself, what you're currently doing, and the impact of the Exodus philosophy and imaginal education on your life in the present. Don't make me do the Sandman routine either.
Well. Kevin, I'm sorry. Kevin, what's up, man? President, would you start, please?
Come on, Randy. Speak into the microphone.
Good afternoon. My name is Edwin Muller. I served 25 years in prison. I currently work for an organization named Bridge Back to Life. We are an outpatient substance abuse program. We have 4 locations throughout New York. I'm the director of off-site programs. We have 5 hospitals that we're currently in, and we provide services in respect to referrals to inpatient and outpatient programs. I've been thinking about Exodus since yesterday and the impact that it's had on my life. And I came to prison when I was very young. I was 17 when I started my sentence. And for a long time, you hear about social ills, you can talk about racism, you can talk about lack of education in our communities. A number of things you could put names to. But how it impacts a young person of color, it's hard to understand how that impacts you as an individual and what you go through growing up inside of the system. And so for me, the voice that told me that I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that was really those social ills. And it was when I went to Exodus and started to deal with a number, read a lot of papers where people were talking about what I was going through and putting names to it, I was able to start dealing with that voice and start talking about myself in a positive way so that I could start learning. So education for me didn't start until I started dealing with some of the internal barriers that I had within me. And once I got with those internal barriers, I was able to go through school and graduate. I have a 4-year degree at Mass College, and I went on to NYTS and got a master's degree in the first class. After that, I still had 12 years to serve in prison. And I served those 12 years, and I went through programs throughout my incarceration, be it pre-release center and other programs. I guess you can call me a jailhouse politician. A lot of guys who are incarcerated, kind of pretty much what I'm talking about. But when I came home, I've been working in social programs since the time that I came home. I've been home for 21 years now.
Yeah.
I've been married for 18 years. I have 2 children. One is in college and one is in the last year in high school. They're going to college next year. I hired a number of ex-offenders or former incarcerated or whatever the title is today throughout my time working. And I guess the last thing I would like to say is that I had the impression that when we got out of prison we were strong. But really, prison makes us fragile. And a number of the men who are coming home today and the women who are coming home today, they have a number of issues that they have to deal with, and they need our support. And ultimately, I think that's what Exodus is about. It's about supporting the men who are incarcerated. And Exodus is about the inside, and it's about the outside. And as I look around the room, last thing I like to say is I'd like to commend everybody who's involved in that work. Thank you.
Mark Brennan. Our one came under 5 minutes. He was at about 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
you 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Eric, unfortunately, you know, brevity is not one of mine.
I know.
My name is Mark Graham. Served 25 years in prison. I started when I was 13. Came out when I was 39. I went in without a GED. I walked out with a Master's in Professional Studies degree. Myself, Julio, and Eric, we were in the same class. Myself and Julio, we were actually not cellmates, but we lived right next door to each other. But I was released in 2001, October 17th, and you know, like when I was in prison, was in the Exodus program, you know, I was under the impression that, you know, the promised land was once we got out of the penitentiary. But I soon learned that was the wilderness. That was the wilderness. Since I've been home, I graduated this year with my Master's in Divinity. I'm now in the doctoral program in ministry. So sooner or later, Rev, I'm going to be a doctor of the church, and the church is going to have some serious problems. I said I've been home now 18 years. This is actually my 18th year. Will be in a couple of more days. I have a son now, my first son. You know, the guy upstairs is funny. Wait till I get 55 to give me a child. Also, one of the most important things I think that I've done since I've been home is the founding of the Redemption Center, which is a non-profit that provides housing for men and women being released from prison. And we have a 0.1% recidivism rate. Wow. Which means that when people come through the Redemption Center, the prison system has lost them. They'll never get that one back. And I have a motto here, and my motto is, you can go back to jail if you want, but you can't do it from here. And I'm going to do everything I can to act as a roadblock for you to go back. Everything I possibly can, I'm going to do. One of the other things that I also do, I haven't done it in quite some time now, and I'm going to get back to that, is I volunteer. I go back into the prisons. I was also involved intimately in this program that started and is now inside the penitentiary called Alternative to Violence Project. We started that inside the prison, and it is now in over 60 countries. 42 years. It's both inside and outside of the community. One of the things that I'm also working on right now, I'm a chaplain as well. I'm about giving back to the community. And my community is twofold. It's all of those men and women who are presently incarcerated and coming home, and those who are on their way inside. We want to try to stop them from going inside. I appreciate all the opportunities that I've had with several people in the room who have been really, really instrumental in my life, and one person in particular is actually three here. Edwin Muller, Edwin Muller, can you stand up, Dave? Most people know Edwin Muller as a superintendent of Eastern. I know him as a vocational educator or vocational supervisor in Eastern. And I remember I was taking my last course to graduate with my associate degree, and I was also enrolled in SUNY New Paltz BA degree. They put me on a transfer. And Dave Miller called me to his office and said, Mark, I'm going to take you off this transfer. But if I hear one squeak out of you, one squeak,
I can assure you, you'll go beyond Clinton. Needless to say, after that, I was in Eastern for 11 years and 3 months, and most people who know me, they call me the mayor. I ran the jail. And the person, there's 2 people who are responsible for me. One of them is, where's he at? John Ducksworth. John challenged me one day when I was in Eastern with my intellectual ability. Oh, you're so smart, why don't you go to college? Oh, man, I ain't got time to go to college. And he pressed me and I went to college. My first public speaking instructor is here with Tyrone Lawrence. You stand up top, let everybody see you. That guy right there taught me how to speak publicly. So what I'm going to do now is respect the time, Mary.
I've known Mark for quite some time, 6 minutes, and that's good for Mark. I just want to say something about retired Superintendent Miller. He came up to me, of course I recognized him. And can you just hold that monitor up, please? Now if I did this, you know he's a good man. We all signed that for him, and it must have been in the 80s, right? 1983, 1985. And I have 4 books published, I remember all of this. Another one signed it because he had been so impactful and so supportive of education in the prison setting. And he brought this to me, I forgot I had signed my name, it's actually my signature. I still signed my name that way, so, and he's here today with us. And it speaks volumes about, you do have people who work in corrections, and it's not a mission in the sense that, you know, they think they're in the army, they want to run roughshod over you, but people who really care about you and want to see you move forward in the future. So thank you for coming. And
my name is Shuaib Abdul-Rahim. I served 37.5 years in prison. I went to Camden Green Haven in 1976. I came there during a particular rough time in my life. It was the early part of my bed. I was young, I was wild. I had a big bullseye on my back because of the nature of my case. It's very political. I was very politicized. And so I became a very big target. When I arrived at Green Haven, my stepfather was the imam in the St. Chloe Mosque. So Rasul, otherwise known as Karate Bob, Route 37X, he was formerly Malcolm's bodyguard, and Malik Abdul Shabazz. So when I arrived at Green Haven, you know, I had a lot of brothers around me. Rasul was getting ready to leave, and when he left, right before he left, they elected me as the imam of the Muslim community of 300 brothers. I was young, 24, 25. But before my stepfather left, he introduced me to several people. The first one he introduced me to was Edwin Muller. I said, Red, what are you going to do? What do you need Red for? He said, trust me, you don't need the Red. I met Tyrone Rogers, you know, they put me in the think tank. And this was the beginning of my education, self-awareness, my maturity, leadership, spiritual growth and development. And Red put me in the Exodus program. I remember the first meeting I sat there with my arms folded because I really didn't want to be there. You know, I had to be there. My stepfather, I had to be there. And I'm glad I went. I met some of the most bravest men, legends in the prison system of New York State. Many of them were here today. I came in the footsteps of many of these men who raised me, taught me, served as role models for me. But Reverend Muller, more than anyone, has been my mentor. He mentored me, he mentored the Muslim community, gave us growth, gave us room. He was an advocate for us when we didn't have a civilian chaplain. But Reverend told me, called me to his office one day, he said, well, you're You don't have a chaplain, but you're the imam. He made me sit on every single chaplain's meeting. I remember the chaplain's handbook that you gave me, and he told me my role was both as a minister to the Muslim community, but the broader community, any and everyone that was in need. I want to thank you for that, Reverend. Yeah. Because you opened my eyes to the broader mission of faith, living faith, walking in faith. And I'm still doing that today. I was released after 37 and a half years. You know, I currently now work with the Jewish Child Care Association. That's not a mistake. They recruited me. Vice President and President recruited me after hearing me speak at an event in Brownsville. And they asked me to come on board. At first, I just did volunteer work. They gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. I ended up working for them. I'm working in a capacity now as a social worker and a waiver service provider. I work with foster children, foster families. It's the most rewarding work I've ever done in my life. It took a lot for me to come in today because I had to actually leave one of my foster children who was heartbroken because I was supposed to take him to Microsoft World so he can play games. And he's a little upset with me, but I'll make it up to him. But I told him I had to come today. It's very important for me to be here today. Jewish Child Care Association hired me because of my background, formerly incarcerated. Because all of the children that I work with, they have a parent who's incarcerated. I raise my children from prison. I understand the challenges that they go through. This is a field of work that I'm promoting to all of my colleagues who have come home. We're talking about keeping these young children from becoming a statistic. And I have them very young. One is 11, one is 14, another is 16 in a week. And he'll be 16 in a week. These three boys have set up my life because I know how important it is for me to be there for them now. And I bonded with them, I'm very close to them. But we are a light and a beacon in our communities. And we have a message to bring. We have a mission to accomplish, which is to keep the prisons empty. Yes. By not letting these young kids end up in those jail cells. Yes. So whatever it is that we have to do, whatever capacity it is that we can do it, let's continue to do that work. Reverend, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shuey. 5 minutes and 3 seconds. People who have been in prison, they have a sense of time. Unlike anybody else, they have a sense of time. Our next speaker, our next panelist is Ronald Day. He and I worked at the Osborne Association for a number of years, and he's currently the vice president of the Fortune Society. I never said this to Ronald. I've been meaning to tell him this for years. He was seeking a promotion within the Osborne Association to become a director of employment and training services. And so he was already working there, so it would have been an internal hire. And he was obviously the best candidate, the executive director, and consulted with me. And I said, of course. So they looked outside of the organization and they interviewed a number of people. And after all was said and done, he was still the best candidate. I've been meaning to tell you that for years. Right? They thought you weren't up to it. And all the people they interviewed, they couldn't compare to you, your skill set, your passion, and what you brought to it. So he moved on to bigger and greener pastures. And every time I see him or something post on Facebook, I say, I got to tell this guy. So now I have an opportunity to tell you that too.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. You and others have been a mentor to me, and I really appreciate it. So again, my name is Ronald Day, and as Eric said, I'm Associate Vice President of the Fortune Society. There's a book called 100 Years of Imprisonment by Scott Christensen. In the book, it says, few people are ever rehabilitated in prison. Fewer still are rehabilitated by prison. Yet some rehabilitate themselves in spite of prison. So I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade and was fortunately able to earn a GED. So when I went to prison, with a 15 to 45 year sentence, I was very uneducated. You know, you're young, hard-headed, and think you know it all. So I was able, because of people like Reverend Muller, to start the college prison program while I was there in Sing Sing. And then when I went to Green Haven, I continued in the program there. But I was there when the funding for the college prison program ended. So it was disheartened when that rug was snatched out from under me, because I thought at the time that I'd be able to earn a degree. Years later, I ended up in Eastern Correctional Facility. I heard about Reverend Muller, maybe ran into him a few times in Green Haven, but mostly interacted with him when I was in Easton. I joined the Exodus program out there. Dr. DeVoe, who's here, was involved in Exodus, and my good friend, Mr. Dwight Johnson Jr., who's sitting in front of me, was involved in Exodus, and it was obviously the place to be if you had a good head on your shoulders and you were conscious and you were about making smart decisions, not just decisions that impact the prison community, but as others have said, impact the external community. You know, prison, although others have said the community can be the wilderness, for me, prison was the wilderness. And so being in a place like Exodus, in prison, a lot of people end up lost. In prison, there's a tremendous amount of despair. And in Exodus, there was hope. Exodus was about life-giving. And that is what drove me to, or had me gravitate to that. So I was fortunately released at my first parole board with 15 years, and I served 5 years on parole as well. But I went out, unlike others who ended up with a degree. I didn't have a degree when I left. I had 51 college credits and also credits from the Certificate in Ministry and Human Services program, which is also an offshoot of the NYTS. So since I've been home, I had to finish my bachelor's degree in 11 years. I had to finish my master's degree. I graduated with honors, and I've been in the PhD program for 6.5 years. I'm just about to drove me here so that I could work on my dissertation, and I'm looking to turn it over to my dissertation committee chair in like the next day or so, and to actually defend my dissertation in November.
Dr. Day.
Dr. Day. I'd just like to say it has been truly a blessing to interact with Reverend Muller and the rest of you over the years, but Reverend Muller has been a truly transformative leader and has been a shepherd to a flock that were basically outcast and marginalized. But you saw in people things that sometimes they didn't see in themselves. And for that, I want to say thank you.
3 minutes and 57 seconds. Our next speaker is Anthony Dixon, and I met him. We were on different sides of the wall. Attorney who represented him in the case, we worked together. I was her paralegal, and one day we needed to go see him, and he was in Fishkill, so she and I visited him at Fishkill. That's when I met him. As I had said earlier, the degrees of separation in this room, probably know too many of you in this room, right? But the degrees of separation, and you can see that almost everybody is doing well. And despite what Bruce Weston is talking about in his most recent book, that prison really, breaks you down, and you leave, and there's a great degree of fragility. People are standing strong despite that. Without further ado.
Thank you. First, I want to say it's an honor to be here today. A number of thoughts are crossing my mind right now. First of all, the second thing I want to say, I'm so happy to see so many brethren from behind the walls in here today. I feel like I'm in a family reunion. Shout out to all you guys today for coming here today, and it's just tears swell up in my heart. Not only that, seeing administrators from inside behind the walls. here in this room is so fitting. And for us to be here today for a man that's like an apostle of our time, transcending so many religious barriers, political barriers, and transcending time itself in what I would call one of the most civil rights issues of our day, mass incarceration.
Yeah.
And so with that said, I want us to all stand and give Reverend Muller a round of applause.
Okay.
On behalf of so many men and women that has been affected by this one individual, I was thinking that Manhattan blocks could not fill the amount of people he has affected. If we was to gather together ghosts and spirits of another world, they could not fill this church, the people that he has impacted. And so if I could think about one word, I would think about the word impact. And how much impact he has made. I thought about the impact that he's made upon the family reunion program. He is in fact the one that framed and directed and that led that after the Attica uprising. If you had family reunion with your wives, with your family, he is the man. I thought about the ministerial service program that is in DOC today, how chaplains used to come in free of charge, and how he's the man that got Muslims, got Christians, got Jews, got everybody inside there with a job to have representation for their faith group. I thought about the college programs that he had championed throughout the years, getting them in there, and how he brought the first college program inside Sing Sing. I thought about, too, the absolute value of human life that he always imparted to individuals. One day I remember him saying to me, Anthony, Moses was a cop killer. There you go.
Say that again.
There you go. And so it's with that tenacity that he came to this platform in this space. James Cone once said that the duty of a pastor is twofold. One is to be a priest, and the other is to be a prophetic voice in his community. It seemed like the Rev understood that well, and so many chaplains need to take note. I'm thinking about also so many men that are not here today that have left us. Lonnie McLeod, Eddie Ellis, and some of the big ones that we really rallied to, and that are legends from the Attica uprising that we owe so much to, that they too would bow their hats to this man today. And so my own impact goes back from when I was in Green Haven, and even before that I served under Reverend Cephas McGee, the first black chaplain in the state of New York. Yes. And so I served with 7 chaplains subsequent to him. And what an experience it was. It gave me an opportunity to pour back into the communities that I was in. I had the unfortunate experience of being in prison for 32 years. And so there is a timeline that all Exodus members learn about. And I can only say that the Exodus impact in my life made a phenomenal impact in so many ways. Today I'm out here now helping people get jobs. Over the last 6 months I've been able to get employees, I think it's around 540. registered underwent paperwork. But beyond that, the voting rights that we have right now, Herman Bell release is some of the things I've been privileged to have an impact in. And I trace that in part to Exodus. The unconventional ideas that came from that group and from conscientious lifers. That at this table and throughout this room, we have a bond that goes beyond veterans who spend 5 years at war, and they are brethren for life. We have a bond that transcends that goes decades, that transcends and overarches everything else in our life, including, in part, our families. This is a large community out here now. More lifers are being released than ever before. And we're making inroads. We are becoming assets. Thank you.
Just one final word. I'd have to ask you guys to give them a round of applause. Thank you for that. You have witnessed something. You have witnessed the testimony of these men, and I'll tell you, it was shortchanged because we only had 30 minutes and they were really respectful of time. But there's a wealth of knowledge, experience, passion on this panel. So can we one more time give them a round of applause?
Thank you, Eric. Exodus inside, Exodus outside. The movement of our people, the movement of the people of God. And one who has exemplified this was held up the vision. You heard Lonnie McLeod, his spouse and partner in life. I was his chauffeur. I used to pick him up from Queen Anne Road and Teaneck and drive him all over the place. So his partnership you hear from a man who has held up the light and the beacon of Exodus outside, the founder, director, executive director of the Exodus Transitional Community, Julio Medina. Let's give him a hand. Julio Medina.
Good afternoon, Mr. Good afternoon. Definitely an honor to see all of you here. You know, I usually could start because it's examples that make all the difference in the world. Right? We have the power to discern so many things, but it's examples in that discernment that allow us to see the truth. And one of those truths happened in that. He was a Dr. Mikael back then. My brother was just me. And I mean, he was a typewriter all night. 22 comes in. I'm like, damn, man, this brother typing all night. Go by himself. And that example of little brother, I'm working on a master's degree, which you should be doing. I'm like, anyway, master's, etc. He's typing every day. Working on an MA. And it moved me, that example, to see someone in those little cells that we were in, working all night, typing. But even more about that example, I'll embarrass you for a minute, was we were leaving, it was outside the mosque, and there was a Christian brother giving out tracts. Mark, you may remember this. There's a Christian brother giving out these tracts. So a couple of Muslims surround the brother. You know, what are you doing giving out these tracts? Mikael came past. Mikael halted everything and said, stop. Actually, you as Muslim brothers should be doing the same thing. And that message said so much to me. That message says, you know, we can do right in any circumstances that we're in. We can know truth when we need to know truth. And maybe you just exemplified it. I want to make sure I say that, brother, because you've been a mentor to me throughout this process. I can go on with each brother here. I mean, you know who you are from John Ducksworth, Aldo, you know, Mark, Eric. Mark, not only were we locked across from each other, but we were handcuffed to each other on our way to nap, brother. When the brother went to the bathroom, I had to go with him. That's a horrible part about that.
You know, some brothers who wasn't mentioned, maybe they weren't, I wasn't here, but Roger Hayes, Talib, powerful brother, disciplinarian, made sure you were in class, you know, no excuses. I want to just make sure that I did mention him. Exodus on the outside campus, just pieces of what everyone gave me. I got out, hustler by trade. I saw something wonderful. I wanted to do something different, and I said, we can do this out here. I connect with people. Some of the first people I connected with was Rod Church. I see Bob here, Nancy. I just want to thank you for the 10 years on my board, and always being there, even in the midst of our many struggles. You stuck, you stayed the course. I thank you. Exodus right now. Exodus right now, again, same concept, boundary wilderness in the promised land. April 4th will be our 20th year in doing this work. For those who, some of you do know, Louis, you actually wrote the story on Facebook recently. But, you know, Lonnie gave me a small space when I got out at the Church of Living Hope. And I took that little space, you know, with no funding or anything else. And today I have 42 people on staff. We have a $4 million budget, and we service about 1,500 people a year. More importantly, 85% of our staff is justice involved. I think who better than us to have the option to understand where they're coming from. Final piece, again, this can go on, but you know, when you see people, these stories come to you so well. I just remember Kevin, I was just trying to move up on the JET library list, you know, trying to get the JET magazine. So there was a list. And Kevin ran it up. Y'all remember that? And Kevin ran it up, like 8th on that list. And I was always trying to move up on that list, but Kevin is here after 30 plus years. Wonderful seeing you, brother, and all the work that you're starting to do now. Edie opened up so much. You know, I got you to do a lot of things. It's never on behalf of me, trust me. I'm never, ever the smartest guy in the room. I have to bring people together. I have a gift to do that. But Edie was the one who opened up the worlds of Mexico and Jamaica, and kind of, we were able to bring this work international and didn't stay local any longer. We were able to talk about prison reform in a very real way. So thank you for all that you have done in this process. I think, you know, I could go on, but I want to say one final thing. You know, so we've been able to not only Exodus, but I think one of my, if I can take credit for one accomplishment, I want to take credit for this. You know, I went to the board, and I remember that first board, many of us do, right? I remember the exact words that were told. And the board said, you know, do you have anything to say? So of course you got something to say, right? So I'm talking, so yes, I'm looking to get out. I never use the word. I'm looking to empower. And the commissioner said, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is a quote. You're a vulture. That's all you'll ever be, a vulture. You prey on the innocence of the communities with your dope dealing. So don't give me none of that psychobabble BS. That's written, you know. I remember, you know, you remember that, right? Is that all you'll ever be? So this one I will take credit for. I now get letters for people who want to be commissioners. I have the opportunity, small, to elect parole commissioners. Yeah!
What is the meaning of Exodus? Exodus outside.
Yeah.
If you want to be a commissioner, talk to him. Talk to him before he leaves. And now one of the original Exodus members, a visionary, a leader, a thinker, one of our own, John Ducksworth, Professor NYTS, will come to invite the panel the next panel. Let's give it up for John. John Ducksworth, class of 8.
I had the privilege of teaching a leadership class at CMC in the Master's Degree program now. And one thing about leadership is the ability to think on your feet. And right now, we're going to make a transition in the program. We're going to do something a little bit different. But we're supposed to have this panel that speaks to exodus beyond the wall. People who have been influenced by the ministry, by the work, by the human struggle, who have never been incarcerated. Who have been influenced by coming to those same exodus meetings, those same cadre meetings, and then taking that vision, taking that energy, taking that work, taking it to the outside. When I think about the work of Eddie Converse, I think about who worked with a youth group and other people who were mentioned here. Gordon is someplace in the room. Where is he? Over here. Gordon Brown and Reverend Allen Ford. I don't believe he's in the room.
He's here. Yeah, Brother Ford is here.
Oh, okay. So what I'm going to do is, rather than put you on a panel, gentlemen, if you get mad at somebody, get mad at me when my car's like this, so you can't cut my tires. But what I'm going to ask you to do is come on up to the mic and give you the opportunity. You got 3 minutes to talk about Ed Muller. And then when they finish, we're going to open up an open mic. And if there are other people in the room that want to say something to Ed, let's do it. We're going to be on the timeline.
George is going to be the time cop, and I'm going to be the salmon. But then you come down to get you on the mic, please.
So go ahead, let's start with you.
Call them, John. Call them again. Call them. Call them to come.
Yeah. Reverend Ford? Father Ford, they want you up here too.
Father Ford and Will. Those two, and then open mic.
There's so much that I have benefited from as a result of the Exodus program founded by Ed Muller. I've become part of a family that I never expected 20 years ago, walking into prison, that I would be a part of such an amazing brotherhood of men. At one point, I've had 2 great mentors in Exodus, Rev and Bama. Now, 10 years in to my volunteering at Eastern, Anthony Leslie kept bugging Rev Muller with letters from Woodburn saying, "You gotta come to Woodburn." And Rev said, "Let's go. I'll go one night a month, and you go another night a month. We'll go twice a month." So Rev goes the first week, and I go the second week, and there's all these guys sitting there, and they're so excited, and it got me so wrapped up. I said, "This every 2 weeks is bullshit. I'll see you next week." As a result of that, of having that opportunity to try to present material to the Exodus men that they could contemplate, and try to lead the process of contracting and presenting study papers, or all of this stuff that we do, we all became friends. We all became colleagues in a way. And that group decided that I should have a prison number. So my honorary DIN is 97A 4700. I became part of that family. And then sometime later, I got a phone call in the middle of the night, around 2 in the morning, from the hospital, Mount Sinai. And they said, "Mr. Brown?" I said, "Yes." "We have Mr. Battle here. He's passed away. He's named you his next of kin." Wow. The connection between me and the men of Exodus is permanent.
Yes.
Whether I continue to walk in the door or not, the result of this program, created by Ed Muller, supported by so many, is unending. And it's changed my life, and it's what I do.
As a result of an accident and a lawsuit, I don't need to work for a living. But I work every week to try to make sure that the men of Exodus are served. Now, thinking about the future, if I can take one more second. We have a challenge. We're in 4 different institutions. And I've come to realize that each institution has a character of its own. And that the effect of Exodus on the institution is different, and the effect of the institution on the men of Exodus is different. 2 institutions have red. I don't have the same connections to the history that red has. So I have to try to bring something that's a little different. But I'll leave you with this, and this is something we have to think about going forward as we try to develop programs that will continue in perpetuity, I hope. Politically, socially, I'm a liberal. I tell the guys I'm somewhere left of pink. But as far as Exodus is concerned, I'm a conservative. The way the program is structured needs no development. It only needs to be preserved and presented in the way it was intended. Because when it's presented the way it's intended, it changes lives and it works. Thank you very much.
So I got a call. I picked up the phone and the voice said, "Call Ford." I said, "Yeah." My name is Edwin Muller. And this was somewhere around, oh gosh, April of 1969. And it was, he wanted me to come out to Greenhaven Prison and preach, recognizing the life of a good friend, Martin Luther King, Jr. So I said, yeah, I'll come out, but I was scared. I've never been in a prison before. And I was really, really scared. So I went, and I felt the 3 doors locked behind me as I went into the prison. And I was escorted to the auditorium where the service was to take place. And I cannot find words to describe what a wonderful reception I received from the men, and what a wonderful reception I also received as I preached about Martin Luther King. And I said, "Oh, this is really love. This is really the presence of love." And Reverend Muller and I stayed in touch, and somewhere in the middle of 1975, I came on board as a chaplain, and I was involved with receptions. People coming out of New York City, and they had to go into reception before it was determined exactly what prison they would be going to. And so I was there doing that work, and then I elected to leave and go to California. And when I got back from California, I left to go to California in 1978. When I got back in 2000, for some reason, one of the first people I got in contact with was our honored guest this morning, Edwin Muller. And he invited me to participate in this program called Exodus. I didn't know that much about Exodus, but I went to my first meeting, and again, I felt real love, incredible love. I met a group of men who were wanting to live civilized lives, which they did not feel they were being able to experience within the prison walls, and the Exodus program gave them an opportunity when we gathered together to be human. And things came out of them in terms of their gifts, their talents, and the like. They all began to present themselves within that room in which we were. And I think Johnson would agree with me on that. So, I have been doing that. I've been there how long now? Since 2007, something like that. And every Friday, I show up. And it's and when I leave, I feel like I have grown so very much.
Yeah.
From the men that I encounter, the men that I engage. And as Reverend Muller mentioned just a few minutes, about a half an hour ago, my specialty is the lifeline. And I think there are men here who remember doing the lifeline. And the lifeline means that the man would present when he was born, and he would mark it on the board, and he would draw a line and mention the ups and downs in his life, the ups and downs. And sometimes there were men who for the first time was talking about things that were incredibly painful. Incredibly painful. But they felt trust from the men in the room. And they were able to open up and talk about these particular episodes that occurred in their lives. And they grew. They grew. I grew. And I would not change that part of the Exodus program for all the tea that China can grow. So thank you, Reverend Muller, or Rev. Thank you so much for calling me that day in 1967 and giving me an opportunity to share in your most vital ministry.
There are, again, a number of men here who have been influenced significantly by Edwin Muller. But there are two men here that never had a DIN number, or here, but they were superintendents in the Department of Corrections, and they influenced the lives of many men. I'm going to introduce both, and then one I'm going to ask to come and speak. And I'll just give him a heady go, because I know he's a personal, long-time friend of Ed Muller. But the two superintendents I'd like to recognize is Joe Williams, over in the corner, now retired. If you ever went to work release, you were in this camp. And the other, again, who I know knows Ed very well, and I think they have lunch together once a month or so. Edwin.
Yeah.
I thought I had something to say until I listened to this group. And I listened to Reverend Grady, and he talked about the advocacy role. And then I listened to Anthony Dixon, which he, again, gave specific details. I, like many in this room, have known Reverend Muller as a friend and as a co-worker since the middle 60s, when we were both at Greenhaven. But before I talk to Ed, just on a personal note, when I retired in 05, before it all disappeared from my mind, I wrote a book called Punishment Enough. And the reason I wrote the book were threefold. I did not want my grandchildren to grow up equating me with the warden from Shawshank Redemption. I wanted to tell Eastern story. Because I was egotistical enough to think it was a unique institution. But mainly, I wanted to tell the story of men like you. Because the general public has the perception that men do time in prison, big time in prison, go out, commit crimes, and come back. And with the help of Mikhail Deval and several others that wrote chapters from my book, I wanted to get that message out that there's many men that leave a prison and have a significant impact on their families, on the state of New York, on the professions, and society in general. And so when I come here today, and I listen to the speakers, and I have men come over and tell me what they're doing, I feel gratified that when I listen to the good work that you are doing, you know, I can't tell you, you know, as somebody who was around for 40 years in this prison system, which is not known for doing good things, how good I feel. Because your testimony that maybe some of that 40 years that I spent was put to good work, and that there is something good that comes out of prison, even if it's accidental. So thank you. Talking about Ed, as I said, I've known him as a friend since the mid-60s. And I can provide testimony, because I used to see Ed every single week, of the good work that he's done. And if you think just for a minute, I know it's been mentioned several times, talk about the South 40 program and the whole idea of the impact that prison college programs have had. And many of you are the recipients of those programs. But when I turned on 60 Minutes after I was retired, and I saw that they were covering the Bard College graduation program, and I heard how eloquently that men that I knew were talking about their prison experience and the significance of the college courses that they had taken. And I thought back as I was listening to those men about the many experience that I've seen. Because I was on that podium as an education director and as a superintendent for many times with Ed. And it was unbelievable. I have 6 kids and 12 grandchildren. And I can tell you that there's no prison graduation ceremony outside that even compares to the one inside. Just to listen to personal growth that has taken place in those college prison programs. And then listening to a college teacher who was kind of forced, because they needed an extra course to come into the prison, to talk about how surprised they were at the challenge and how much they enjoyed that everyday interaction with men in prison. It just made me feel so good. And after the ceremony, when I go out and I would meet mothers who the tears were rolling down their cheeks, and the tears were rolling down my cheeks, who said, I knew my son was going to amount to something. And this is living proof, as they're getting their diploma from the Alice Chandler or the Leon Modsteins. So, thank you, Ed, for starting something that had such a huge, huge impact on men during time. The other impact that's already been mentioned, I think that Anthony mentioned it, that had tremendous significance is the family reunion program. And then now we helped get it started, but he literally mentored it. He drove the vehicles. He did all of the nuts and bolts things to make it happen. And I know because I was at the inside. You guys were participating, but I know what he had to do in the battles that he had to fight to make that a reality. And I also know, because I know so many men in this room, just how many families that program is held together and how important that program was. So thank you. And the Exodus program, that created a sense of hope to men that had basically given up on hope and never thought they would get out of prison. That day in and day out. And it wasn't just the structure of the program. It was the Father Fords and the Mr. Gordons and the ex-inmates. Many of you still come into this program. And the importance that is to inmates, that to see, because all they see is somebody that's failed, right? That's all staff see, that's all other inmates see. So Ed, week after week, said to the county, I got to bring so-and-so in. And both of us knew it was kind of bending the rules a little bit, but the importance. And then, the last thing I want to mention is what Reverend Grady was talking about, because I was part of that system, and I knew is that Ed never gave up on anybody. I mean, guys that I would have given up a long time ago, guys that I sent up to Comstock, just to keep a positive environment, Ed never gave up on. He'd go wherever they were, whether it was upstate, Clinton, Attica, Auburn, Death House, he'd go and visit them. And he was the thing that gave him a sense of purpose and a sense of hope. So, Reverend Grady is right. The good Lord put Reverend Muller on this earth for a reason, and he did a damn good job.
Something I didn't know until today. Several years ago, it would have to be in the 80s, Dave had some inmates sign a book. It was an inmate, colleague, a friend, Darrell King. Most of us know Darrell King, remember him? Yeah. So he used to do leather work. So Darrell worked for Dave at one point. He made a folder for him. They let people sign that book. He has that book with him now, today. And so they just thank you. Thank you. But I don't further ado. Now we're supposed to end this portion of the ceremony, I say by 3 o'clock? Yeah. Okay, so that being said, if there's someone that wants to share, and here we go. You got 2 minutes, brother.
Tell us your name and Exodus.
First, I want to say, let us come to terms with life.
Our life is a human struggle. The struggle is anyone deep. The struggle holds death and life.
So, for those of you who have never been incarcerated, our life is in a human struggle. Struggle is painful and keen. Struggle holds death and life. The part that he left out of the struggle now will create the human world of the future.
Yes.
Right? So, I started off as being a June, very articulate. I was convinced that when I was released from prison, that Puff Daddy had to go on my trunk. I said to myself, instead of selling drugs, let them do all the work, I'm going to due to kidnapping and robbery. I was serving a 20-year life sentence for the murder of a police officer. And in being articulate and hard-headed, Exodus was the only room that they all said, "You are stupid, shut up." Mikhail DeVoe, I'm a product of Morris Howard, William Stevenson Battle, who we call Bama, and Lonnie McLeod, classic, sharp, sharp, sharp. As you can see, I took some notes. So, as a young person, watching these brothers come back into the penitentiary, for me, they were giants. And then, you hear, like, Allo, whatever, Allo? I never met you, and I know you. Because the name gets reiterated all the time in the program. If it were not for these brothers to pull my coat and just tell me how stupid I was, I would have no need to get smarter. And in the process of trying to get smarter, they had an educational system available. And to reassure us that it wasn't yet another thing that was getting snatched from out of the world, we had somebody that came in, volunteered to spend their time to check on us on a weekly basis. My mother's not going to do that for me in prison. My father wasn't going to do that. My 3 wives wasn't going to do that. Thank God for conjugal visits. And Edwin Muller did that. He was the great white hope. He was the man that was going back to the FBI. Don't get going in that room, y'all stupid. We all had to be rats and snitches to be in the room. Who told y'all to get smarter? Y'all got a relationship with superintendents. You have to understand that prison is the most impossible place. It is fantasy land, it's fairy tale movement, and we are idiots. Some who worked it, some who lived it. And to have a beacon of hope coming on a weekly basis. Just think about that. Y'all don't even like people that much. But he came in, following. Volunteered. Every week. And brought people with him. Didn't just come alone. Brought people with him. Who were giants? Professor, see Bill uncupping his head. These were giants to us. College students, oh no. Bunch of white girls, young girls. And we protected, nurtured, and educated them. Because technically, I wasn't going to start by saying, good afternoon, psychopaths, sociopaths, lowlifes, and crooks. But that's the way they labeled us, right? They said we was worth nothing. We can do nothing. Exodus proved it wrong every single week. Every single week. So, examples, I think, if I could say of anything that Exodus is an example. And bringing in examples. I despise, when I was released, anyone called me an ex-con. Exodus taught me that the prison system, that I was going to break the prison system before the prison system broke me. When I came home, I knew I was more than just an ex-con. So forgive me, fellas, for not participating in any program, because prison was the worst thing. I hated prison more than all of y'all. I don't care what nobody says. I hated it more than everyone. I'm too spoiled. I like manicures, pedicures, and bubble baths. So, for Rev to to bring examples of survival, examples of, got me a good girl, worked for the Red Cross, and I got married. Jackie was just giant. I'm on the clock, I'm getting off. So the things that I want to say, Rev, there's no way we can thank you. There's no way we can thank you and your family, your wife, your kids. They were involved too. God bless you, and everything they say about us, we show in Exodus is not true. The wives that do the time with us, we stay with them. It's not true that we all leave. It's not true that we all celebrate. It's not true that we do. We show that. So I just beg everybody here to keep showing that. Also, I like to thank Michael Flournoy because I live down south. I was not coming. Michael Flournoy made sure I jumped on the plane. Yeah, I don't know where Mike probably eating a cookie in the corner somewhere. So, thank y'all very much. God bless. Again, during this period, if there's anyone else, come on.
That time will talk.
Good afternoon. My name is Darrell Smoke, and I'm affectionately known as Rel. I see so many of you out here today. I just want to take 2 minutes, it was usually 10, to just give my love, honor, and respect to Edwin Muller. But I don't come alone. I represent all the men who are not here, who are outside, who are working, who are doing great things. Everything that Mr. Johnson said is so true about, Reverend Muller coming in every week and providing, a haven, a think tank, and an opportunity for us to just contemplate on what we want to do when we come home. I was a young person that went to jail at 16 years old. I served 20 years. I was a young person that went to jail at 16 years old. I served 20 years. I came home at 36, 5 years ago. And during my incarceration, of course, I went to Exodus. From there, I went to BARD. From BARD, I went to the NYTS program. And from NYTS, a year later, I made my first parole board. Came home, I worked at Brooklyn Defender Services as a youth advocate. I then went on to direct a program for kids with autism up in Yonkers. And now I've partnered with a childhood friend to own a construction company with laborers. So, and I have about 4 Exodus guys who are not here because they're working in the store who I actually employ.
Come on, bro.
I'm in the process of creating a program in which, I want to address young folks who are at risk for gun violence, and I want to create the job training and the job placement program. I'll do the training and I'll do the placement. When I first wrote up the program, I sent it to Rev, and I asked him to bring it to the group so it could be a study paper, because I remember all of you guys sending in some of the things that you were working on, and you were like critique it, have so many things to say. So I'm definitely not here to celebrate or anything like that, but I just want to tell you that the process is practical. It's real. And myself and others who aren't here are products of the process. And I cannot be more grateful to Rev and all of the men here for them. And I had to take my 2 minutes because time was very valuable. Time was valuable. This may not be next year. So, I ran over here. I'm not suited and booted as that as Johnson, but I can assure you he doesn't dress better than me. I needed to say that to you. We'll continue to work. I see my good brother Don Cole, my inspiration. I had to shout him out, and all of you guys. And thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is, and I am, Sincere Wilson.
about Exodus while I was in Clinton, and I was in a class being taught by Larry White, and he taught us about Rev, and he taught us about Exodus, and we really didn't have a clue about what that was about, because in Clinton, we were still big. You go to class, but when you leave class, you gotta go to their yard, we were still big. And I ran into Herman Bell, Seth Hayes. So between Larry White, Herman Bell, and Seth Hayes, those were my initial mentors, telling me about Exodus and what the program is about, what I should be doing instead of what I was doing. And Larry White asked me, what do you want to do with your life? In the next 5 years, where are you going to be? What do you want to do? So I told him, actually, I want to be in college. But by this time, the Tech had already taken college out of prison. So he said, well, what are you doing towards trying to get that college degree? I said, we don't know the jails at college anymore. He said, yes, we do. Look it up. And I found out that Easton had a college program. Now, you don't know that you can't just pick a jail and that's where you go. Right? That's not how that works. So the plan that I devised was I got on what is known as the ILC. And we were like the foreman in the administrative staff's behind. And I made myself a nuisance to the point where the deputy security came to myself and said to me, look, it's either one or two things going to happen. Either you're going to leave here or we're going to kill you. Now, where do you want to go? Before he could get the word go, I said, Easton. And in 2 days, actually 3 days, I was on the boat going to Easton. I was on the bus going to Easton. And I got there, and I seen Rel and Herman Bell. And Herman Bell said, you hear? I'm going to sponsor you going to Essex. And there I met Rel. My wife just left here. She had an emergency. She had to go. Rev is the one who presided over our wedding in 2010. And when I told her I was coming here, she said, no, I got it. I got it. More importantly, I was going to leave with her. And she knew how important Essence was and is to me and said, no, you stay. That's huge for her. Rev, I think somebody said earlier, we can't thank you enough for creating Exodus and allowing us to explore our imaginary education. Because what I learned there, I'm still applying now. In fact, I teach a course at the new school called Transformative Mentoring, and it's for formerly incarcerated people
before people are saying that. That's why the music is on.
So we cut the show. Once again, thank you.
Reverend Sabuni has to officiate at a wedding, so we're just going to do something, and then we're going to continue. And after the last speaker, Reverend Muller will come and give us the concept of the elders and some closing remarks.
And before that, before we do this, things like this cost money. M-O-N-E-R. You don't do it with breath, you don't do it with speeches, you do it with money. So we want your money. We want to thank those who give money, Julio. We want to thank Ed Muller, Jackie, for contributing to this.
Riverside Prison Ministry.
The Riverside Prison Ministry. Give them a hand. Big, big hand. Riverside Prison Ministry. Now, if you want to give money, give it to Jackie McLeod. Do you have a hat or something? Collection plate? We're ready. Yeah, the collection plate right here. So pass it. Pass it around. How many collection plates? Okay, who wants to start? Reverend Pastor Grady, Nathaniel Grady started with $100. He already did. So who wants to? You want? Okay, there you go.
People get ready to give money.
Give money, exactly, go ahead.
And Reverend Sabuni also donated, I believe, $500 to this event.
We all say thank you today in so many different ways. But here, in this moment, collectively, we would like to give Ed a presentation. We'd like to give him an award from our heart. Eric, who is the writer amongst us, the literary person, he's going to read some words. And Ed, we're going to ask you to come forward. And I'm going to take another liberty here. Susan, if you would come with your card.
We're here in the Riverside Church, and the Riverside Church also contributed to this event. And I just wanted to read this email. Anybody could have read this email. You don't have to be a literary scholar to read this email. A.Z. Dice, he's the former chair of the Riverside Prison Ministry, and he could not be here with us today, but he sent this email to Jackie, who spearheaded all of this.
Jackie should be up here.
Jackie is the one who really made this happen. So this is from the former chair of the Riverside Prison Ministry, A.Z. Dice. I'm sorry I cannot be with you on Saturday at Riverside as you honor Reverend Muller for 60 years of prison ministry work. Reverend Muller has been a solid rock and the go-to person for concerns about social justice issues in New York State correctional institutions. During the period I was chairman of Riverside Prison Ministry, Reverend Muller was a great help to me. You can measure a man by the service he gives to others. There is no yardstick that can measure Reverend Muller's service to humanity. May God continue to bless him in the years to come. So we want to present this award to Reverend Muller.
It says, the past is approved, the present is received, and
the future is over.
The future is over. 60 years of selfless dedication to the men of excellence, 50 years of imagining self-transformation and leadership. Reverend Edwin Muller, pastor, mentor, friend to men, October 6, 2018.
We're not going to let him do his acceptance speech right now, but then I really have to do my CNA. But Reverend Muller will come up towards the end and he'll talk about a couple of things and then he'll close us out. But before we move on with this part, we would like to present to Jackie the crowd. All of you. Presented a couple of times today, the Reverend Dr. Lonnie McLeod, and Jackie spearheaded this. She got us all together. The committee is actually right here for the most part.
Larry what?
Larry.
Come on.
They were all part of the committee that put this together today. So we want to thank Jackie from the bottom of our heart. She's continuing the legacy of her late husband, Reverend Dr. Lonnie McLeod. Thank you, Jackie.
So we're going to keep with the open mic.
Right. So the open mic.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tyrone Larkins. I just want to take a couple of minutes to say thank you to some people that's here and not here. Naturally, thank you, Edwin. Thank you for being here, not only in Green Haven, but when I got to Walkill, and we came to an understanding that something was missing in my life. And I'm proud to say it, but I can say it now that I couldn't say then. But I hesitated, but you brought it out. Christ wasn't in my life at that time. I was running away. I went back to church. That's why I became your armor bearer in Walkill, me and our group of cubs. Thank you for that, because it made me go on. It made me understand what the concept of Exodus was. See, it wasn't tested until I was released from prison after doing 29 years straight, after going to the parole board 3 times and being told no, after going to 25 furloughs and still having the parole board tell me no. It was tested then. I'm proud to say this right now, and it may shock some of you to know that I am an employee of the Kings County District Attorney's Office. No, I'm a special counsel who I work with. I'm not in the prosecutorial end of this. Let's don't get it twisted. I'm on the end of trying to help young men who took a plea and said, take the redirect program, who I'm one of the officers for, or take that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of stay. So I deal with your grandchildren, your children's children, my great-grandchildren, who try to keep them out of jail. But see, when I went to jail in 1968, they didn't have programs like that. Said lock them up, throw away the key. Yeah, I went to Atlanta. Rev told you that. Yeah, I got shot up in Atlanta. And I was very angry when I came down to Green Navy. Thank you, Larry White, for stopping me from killing that guy. No, real talk. Real talk. Larry White said, don't go to the east side to do that. We got a better way. Go to college. And I did that. And he kept pushing me until his generation in Green Haven left with the junior lands. And I was but free release center. So me and Randy Outlaw decided to do a thing with Ed Hammond and legislators. And they pulled us to Albany and said, what's wrong with the correctional system? And we did what we needed to do. And we still did all that time. But the fact of the matter is, I came out, officially released in 1997. I was released on work release in 1993. I've never been back to prison. The applause is Reverend Muller. Because he told me about something in the bushes, something shaking in the bushes. Yeah. He said that should be the downfall. So we learn how to persevere, we learn how to get over. I'm not going to make a long speech of this, because I could talk about the Carlberries, I could talk about the Roger Whitfield Neighbors, I could talk about a lot of people. I talk about that guy right there that was my educator, Dave Miller. See, when I met Dave Miller, he was the supervisor of educators in Green Haven, and he told me, I'll never forget what he told me. I see something in you where you need to go to school. And I had 2 shanks on me then. 1972, 73 in Green Haven was a very difficult year. But we persevered. Thank God. I thank God for my wife Brenda, who I met in 74, who was an educator, who's still an educator, who's a retired educator, and said there was a better way. She came to the pre-release center. She helped me help individuals do resumes and start writing formulas for a life plan. And we're still together. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you for being the guy that you are.
I met Greg in 1972 in the guest house in Green Haven. I mean, it was the most amazing thing that ever happened in my life. He was the minister.
before the death house, and he came up, and every time I heard him, he was talking this.
What's your name?
My name is Lawrence Hayes.
Where did you meet him at? Where that Green Haven? Tell me. Yeah,
and I met him there, and he amazed me, because he always was talking about the past, the present, and the future. For a person in the death house, I mean, I had a past, and the present wasn't looking too good. This guy was talking about the future, and he gave me a book. The book was Jonathan Livingston's Secret, and I read it, and my life changed completely. Because Jonathan didn't adhere to any norms, any stereotypes, or anything. He looked to the future, and he looked to change the future for himself, and for everybody who would take the time to realize that they could grow and change. And I left the death house in 1974, and I immediately went into the Exodus group. But I would just like to do something here, just like to mention some names. In the death house, Chuck Cohane, Gary McGivern, Fitzpatrick, Cornelius Butler, and of course, William Barnes. I would also like to mention some names that were very instrumental in my life when I was in the Exodus group. Bama Bass, Cardell Shear, Max Studies History, Mayhew Whitfield, Larry White, John McIntosh. These are names that touched the lives of every prisoner in Green Haven and eventually throughout the state. Rev, I would like to thank you. Even today, I look back, and when I look at that aspect of my life that made all the difference, you know, it was you and the Exodus and all the people that I met while I was in this. I would like to thank all of you too. You were inspirations to me. Everybody in this room, even when you wasn't in this room, 50 years. Since I've been out, this is the most, profound expectation I've had in all the time that I've been out of prison. That I would meet up with people whom I commune with, who I socialize with, who I educated and got education from. So I want to thank everybody in this room, but Rev, I can't find the words to fully express the impact that you had on my life and how much I appreciate, value, and respect you. Thank you.
I'm going to be short this time, Eric. Where is he? Well, first and foremost, I just want to say that most prisoners, when we come out, the last thing we want to do is be reminded of that prison experience. So here I am, I'm home. I think I met with Rev like maybe my third or fourth one home. And the first thing that Rev did to me, he traumatized me. He had the unmitigated goal to bring my contract with him. He bought my Exodus contract with me. I never said this to him, but you traumatized me, Rev. But it was out of that trauma that one of the things that he made me remember is don't forget. Remember what you said, remember what you wrote, remember what you articulated, and now it's time to carry out some of those things. You gotta do it. Gotta do it. Got so used to Brad calling me the lady, Mom Brad. So I knew I was always on time when he called me a lady. The only thing I want to be late for is my funeral. But one of the other things I think that all of us should be somewhat happy and proud about is that we're doing the work that not only the Rev
also pushed us and carried us through a lot of this. Bill and Rev, I want to thank both of y'all because y'all allowed me to meet angels on earth. Thank you, Rev.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Ennis, and it's an honor for me to be here because this is like, I see Mr. Johnson over there laughing, because it's like a deja vu moment for me, and I'm pretty sure it's like that for all of us, because it was just yesterday we was all in camp in Easton, and we were just envisioning being out, you know, and you know, for some of us, you know, even though we thought it might not never happen, it happened, but we went through that journey together, you know, and so I got arrested in October 20th, 1987 for a crime that I didn't commit. So that means I went to trial and got convicted, sentenced to 25 to life, right? So I had one rule: you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. I have to get out of jail through the courts, and that's the only thing that's my focal point in my mind. You know, I did tutor. I did have a high school diploma and had some college experience, so the GED tutor on Rikers Island, the state saved. But then I met Larry White, and he said, let's come to terms with life. And he introduced me to the opening and closing right, the Liberation Study Group. And he taught me how to construct a prison life, you know, so I could survive that journey. That's 27 years of torture. People ask me, how did you do it? I said, with great difficulty. I always smiled, kept my head up, but with great difficulty. It took a huge toll on my family. But, so just to fast forward to 2012, when I had to go to the Pro Board, we had already started the second Exodus program at Woodburn. And while he's there shaking his head, as my brother, and Gordon was there, Edie was coming in, and I was getting my letters ready for the Pro Board, and Reverend Muller came in, Woodburn Correctional Facility. He said, I sent that letter to the Pro Board. I said, yeah, Rev waited for me. I know he waited for me, right? So I'm ready. Now I'm ready. I'm ready to go to the Pro Board. Everybody know I'm innocent. You have a conversation with me, and everybody want to tell me what to say. Right, buddy? They want to tell me what to say. I said, I got to deal with my own demons. I got to talk to these people. I talked to them people, and then Reverend came the next week or next month. I said, they denied me. He said, it's unpredictable. That's Reverend's way of teaching. He been teaching me since 1990 before I even got a chance to meet him, because I was sitting at the footsteps of the master, Larry White, who was teaching me, you know, giving me the contract, telling me what to do. And I think I was a pretty good student. And I did everything that I could possibly do. And one thing I knew in my heart, that I wasn't a threat to society. So when they denied me the Pro Board, first time I went early, because I earned 6 months off, like LTCA, new law, I went 6 months early. They said, okay, we denied you. So Sincere's around here somewhere. Sincere said, yeah, that was practice. I said, yeah, that was practice to boost my moral spirit up again. And then I go, and then they denied me. They said I was a threat to society. So I remember what Larry White always said. He said, that's crap. If one thing I wasn't a threat to society. So I had to prepare to go back again. And I just took the spirit of so many brothers that's here today when I let me go, especially Mikael. Mikael, one of my facilitators, teachers by extension. He come into the transitional group, and when he was going to the Pro Board, and he had the script, I said, okay, I'm taking my notes. Johnson took his notes, I'm taking notes. I used to be in next to this group, and Reverend talk, and Reverend said, hold on, what you writing down? I said, I just think I just always doodle to myself, you know, so I don't forget stuff, right? But Reverend told me, he said, look, man, it's unpredictable. So in other words, I took from that, look, don't let it get you down, because I was hurt. First time I went to the board, and they tell me I'm a threat to society. So after 27 years, I went back, and I remember that. I said, no matter what these people say or do to me, that they can't convince themselves that I was a threat to society. And I adopted a part of Mikael's his parole speech. He said the last question he's going to ask them was there anything else I could have done to increase my chances of release? And I asked him, and the parole commissioner said, he said to me, he said, now you think you didn't do a good job. I said, man, I'm ready to tear this place up. And everybody know I'm not violent inside the prison, but you can't play with my head like that. After I gave you 27 years of dedicated service, even Superintendent Miller, he anointed me an old timer. He said, man, he gonna keep me in the jail, right? Because all the old guys is getting shipped out, they're getting shorts, they have to go to mediums. And I said, oh shoot, I'm an old timer. I gotta stay around and talk to these young guys. You know, they appreciate it. I was getting acknowledged, but I have to get out of this jail now. So the parole commissioner told me that. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody that. I couldn't tell anybody. It was too devastating for me. But when I came out of that parole hearing room that day, Don Core and Dixon, they said, yo, man, you out of here, man. You was walking like you had, like, you know, it was confident. I said, man, that was in the spirit. And the spirit pulled me out of that prison. You know, and after that 27 years, I did 3 years on parole, and I'm off. The 3 years I was on parole, I worked at the Fortune Society, and I continue to do the Exodus and contract work with all my charges. Everybody know I'm the lifeline man. You want to figure out what's wrong with you, want to do a lifeline. You know, so I just want to thank you, Rev, for that. For those encouraging words, all the teaching that you did to all of the men that came under your tutelage or heard your voice as it resounded throughout the system and whatnot. You know, it helped us, inspired us just to stay focused, keep hope alive, and do your work, do your contract work, set your goals because it'll pull you out. That imagine education is so profound. I just want to thank you for that. And I just want to take this time to thank you personally. Thank you, Reverend Muller.
Good afternoon. My name is Hassan Gill. Unfortunately, I'm one of the men who did biblical time. I was arrested on the day that Dr. King was assassinated. I was now released into the month of the bomb. I know you've heard the name. Testing. You heard the name of Clifford Battles, William Battles, several times today. And I want to say something that he told me about, Reverend Muller, that makes all the other activities you've heard about him today kind of pale in comparison. I don't even know whether Rev knows this or not, but Bama, first of all, Bama was a country boy, countryman, a deeply country guy. He made up his own words, but he was one of the articulate guys who tried to do that. I mean articulate. Bama was the Exodus unofficial hitman. His choice for weapons, or weapon of choice, was a rock in a knit hat, a brick out of the yard in a knit hat. You couldn't say too much wrong about Exodus program around that. He wouldn't tolerate, he would not tolerate it. He'd come back at you. Not necessarily violent, I'm not saying he was violent about that, but he was known to be violent at times. And on one of those occasions, it helped me out, along with Larry Whitehead in a situation that was so critical that they closed the joint down for a few days. However, I was seriously into Black history. And like the brother said, I don't remember the brother's name, dapper brother over there, all in the suit. I was one of the naysayers of the Exodus program. I came to him in 73 and said, why are these black guys following around a white man? I didn't say it, but I thought it. Then later on, I just said it, expressed it. So I was talking to Bama one day. He was standing in front of my cell and had all these books in back of me. Hundreds of books, all by black authors. All I could find. And he said, you got a lot of knowledge behind you. Not a lot of knowledge in your head. But I bet you didn't know that Reverend Muller is the founder member of the John Brown Society in Dutchess County. I said, what? He said, yeah, the founder member of the John Brown Society in Dutchess County. And I looked at him, he said, look around. Look, he didn't say that, he said, look around here. Him, look around him. So, I started to ask questions about Reverend Muller. I talked to a few men who were down there more closely, listened to them more closely than I learned that there was something to be learned from this man to the man in this program. I did not have a lot of respect for a lot of it because I did not know a lot of it. But after I learned it, I use it now. I use it with teenagers. They love the program. I don't call it Exodus program because they're kind of averse to religion. Once they get into it, they understand the message. I want to say, Reverend, I think that's the highest compliment you could ever get, to be a founder member of any John Brown society. You don't know who John Brown is. So I think anything else that I hear about you, nobody else can ever say anything else about you that supersedes what man said to me that day. And he said it so matter of fact. You know, like, you must be some kind of dumb man. Because you don't see what's going on in here.
Good afternoon, my name is Norma Dixon, and in 1981, I believe we started volunteer services at Green Haven Correctional Facility. And as I debated with myself, and that's what Joey about, I'm always debating with myself, the song came to mind that said, how can I say thanks for the things that you have done? How can I say thanks? To God be the glory, but I want to say to Ed, be the glory today for the things that he has done. To Ed be the glory, to Ed be the glory, to Ed be the glory for the things you have done.
Part of the Rye Presbyterian Church ministry, and at one point my husband and I are corporate trainers, and they said to me, do you like a mic? I said, I love a mic. And Bob said, that's not what they were asking, Nancy. They were asking if you'd like to have a mic at the lectern, not whether or not you love a mic. But I'll be great. I'll be great. Anyway, what an extraordinary day, and Jackie is there. Just kudos to you, and in a number of workshops I've been in or that I've led, a common question very often is, when you reach the pearly gates, what would you like God to say to you? And my answer is always, He made a difference. Well, we sit here in this room and we look at all the different faces and all the different people who have made a difference, who have made an incredible difference. And Reverend Muller, I think you're in the fast lane. I think you could just bypass a lot of folks anyway. I came from a lock 'em up, throw away the key attitude. That was until I met people who said to me, boy, are you wrong. You are so wrong. You referred to me as stupid. I was just plain stupid. So it has made a huge difference in my life. But what I picture is, so the last point you made, up at Lake George, we go to a place and there's a rock. I mean, it's just all rock. It's a huge, big rock. And there was a crack in the rock. And this rock, coming through the crack, was the most delicate, beautiful, purple wildflower. And I took a picture. I wish I could find the picture. And for me, that has been a symbol of what so many of you have accomplished in a rock, finding the crack in the rock and growing into the beautiful, beautiful wildflower. So kudos to all of you. I'd love to mention everyone here that we know, that we had the pleasure and privilege of knowing, but extra special gratitude for you, because anytime they mention Reverend Edwin Muller, everybody goes, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, he's somebody, isn't he? So anyway, congratulations to you.
We have lost some people, but we're going to finish with grace. We have been talking about Exodus Inside, so we just want to, John and I, read some words from the men inside, and they can speak for themselves. My name is Javier Miranda. I've been incarcerated for a quarter of a century. I joined Exodus in 2003. Prior to joining Exodus, I was living with no hope and in a state of depression, wandering lost in the wilderness. I was living in captivity with unaddressed issues and no coping mechanisms, lost without a plan or purpose. Exodus and Reverend Muller provided me with the tools necessary to transform imprisonment into a positive, life-changing experience. It emphasized my responsibility to victims, their families, and society. I witnessed how Reverend Muller sacrificed his time, energy, and sometimes his health and personal safety to show the rest of us a clear vision of how to live, cope, rebuild, and forgive. In his 60 years of service, he has borne witness to the truth even when it was unpopular, in and out of the prison system. With courage, he points out the way things ought to be to make this a better society. Reverend Muller, thank you for your example and the inspiration that actions and life provides. This world, this country, our communities are all better places because of you and your legacy. I am very proud to be part of the Exodus family. Javier Miranda.
Many of the men who have gone through Exodus have also had the opportunity to go to New York Theological Seminary and graduate. Well, the next letter that we're going to read is from the men who are currently behind the wall, who have graduated from NYTS. And at the conclusion of this reading, I'm going to ask Reverend Muller to come and let him share. So, without further ado, dear Exodus brothers, it's with great gratitude and appreciation that we, the New York Theological Seminary North Campus alumni and students, join our Exodus family in celebration. Today, the legacy of Exodus and Reverend Muller lives on. Since its inception, the North Campus Alumni Monthly Meeting utilizes the Exodus model and write, our life is in the human struggle. The struggle is painful and deep. The struggle holds death and life. In 1974, Reverend Edwin Muller, who at the time was chaplain for the Department of Correctional Services in New York State, conceptualized the idea of having a graduate degree program in prison. Reverend Muller had already been instrumental in bringing accredited undergraduate courses into the prison system. Still, he wanted to see men who had earned their bachelor's degrees continue their education and earn graduate degrees. Reverend Muller advocated this idea in many circles, but could not find financial backing. In 1981, however, he took his idea to Reverend Dr. George W. Weber, then president of New York Theological Seminary. Dr. Weber agreed that a graduate degree program in ministry was possible within prison. To him, the task of doing theology in prison was not only a challenge, but also a fine idea. It took several years to get the program started with the assistance of Reverend Dr. Weber and Dr. Earl B. Moore. NYTS held its first class at Sing Sing Correctional Facility in Ossining. And this afternoon, one of its first inaugural members, Mr. Outlaw, is with us. Since the academic year 1982-1983, NYTS offers one of the most unique programs in theological education in North America, the Masters of Professional Studies degree. Thanks to Reverend Muller, today, Masters of Professional Studies represents much more than the acquisition of a master's degree. It represents a call to serve humanity. We are committed to live a life-giving way of life. Accordingly,
We plan to use our degrees to go back to our neighborhoods and create or assist programs that will facilitate reentry, reduce recidivism, curb drug abuse, prevent domestic violence, discourage crime, and confront the daunting challenge of youth delinquency. We have the tools and experience to make a difference in our society. Henry Knowles stated, "Who can take away suffering without entering into it?" The great illusion of leadership is to think that others can be led out of the desert by someone who has never been there. We believe a huge part of the seminaries and Reverend Muller's vision in bringing the Masters of Professional Studies program into prison is to enlist and train ambassadors to go back to those neighborhoods we helped destroy. We are conscious of the need to go back to those communities we used to terrorize, back to those areas we used as launching pads for some of the most appalling crimes, with an eloquent and insightful message of remorse, rehabilitation, reconciliation, restorative justice, and more importantly, a hope for a better future. In conclusion, the men said, "We, the NYTS students and the North Campus alumni, stand here today proud of the opportunity to be part of the Exodus family celebration and humbled by our commitment to serve. We all vow to live the life we have for the sake of humanity." Thank you. Sincerely, NYTS North Campus students and alumni. And over 40 men have signed this letter to you and to us. Some of the history is wrong, but that's okay. What is right is that we have Reverend Muller with us here tonight. So without any further ado, Reverend Ed Muller.
Just going to say a few words. It's been a great time for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's always nice to hear affirmation, but it's been great to see so many of you who haven't seen each other for many years get together and really affirm each other. There's so many other great ones here. And, I think of Larry White, who started way back in 1968. We journeyed off and on, and Jeff Smith from those early years. One thing, the planning committee mostly represents the first generation of Exodus, 68 to 1980. And there is a whole current generation. How many BARD people are here today?
Greenhouse.
Some here. Okay. BARD is now, I think almost half our group at Eastern are BARD students, and we've sent several to the seminary in the last 5-6 years. And BARD professors have told me that their best students are people who are coming out of the Exodus program, and I've had that same comment from the seminary professors as well. I'm going to just try and close with a few thoughts. Going way back to the beginning, is Conrad still here?
No, yes.
Okay. One of the two leaders of the Attica uprising was Frank Big Black Smith. He was in our very first Exodus group at Greenhaven. And he wrote this to me. He said, "The confines of prison life, a man often finds that he is very much alone with himself. In these hours of solitude, he may consciously or unconsciously delve deeply into negative and sometimes detrimental matters, a desperate attempt to silence the inner voice that ever questions the meaning of his existence. He said, I have ventured the latter mentioned course and now experience a profound desire to relate and exchange my concepts and ideas with others, for it is my firm belief where men, thinking men, are joined together in a creative effort, there is no limit as to what may be achieved. He says, in conclusion, I view the Exodus cadre as such a situation. That is one affirmation I've always cherished. After he got voted to Attica, he wrote to me asking if I could help getting back to Greenhaven, and that was not possible. I was going to close with reading some comments from 4 or 5 Exodus study papers, but I'm going to just briefly say a word about each one. We use study papers every week, and some of the best ones that we have been written by men in the group. And one of my hopes for Exodus elders, what I'm hoping to do is use the planning committee for this event to begin to gather names, and I'm going to invite any Exodus people here who would like to be part of the elders group, which will be like a think tank. What I'm envisioning, maybe meeting twice a year, maybe once in the spring and once in the fall. Put our minds together and evaluate what's been critically important in the Exodus experience to you who are now on the outside involved in significant things, so we can feed that back to the men who are inside. So if any of you are interested in being part of the Exodus elders, who will meet maybe twice a year, you need to let me know. I want to close, by the way, the study papers I wanted to mention, one was by Randolph Outlaw, which we use as one of our foundational papers, where he talks about coming to prison and not caring about himself, and then experiencing a conversion that would last for over a period of years, getting into the seminary program, and in the end of the paper, he says, seminary helped me describe my own personal struggle. And a lot of guys pick up on that as a watchword. Patrick Taxon, who came in, I think, at age 16 from a gang in Brooklyn, ended up coming to terms with his life. When he saw his friends going home and coming back, he said, that's not going to be my story. And he wrote down his goals. He ended up in Georgetown Law School and has been practicing law ever since. Terrell still here? Yeah. He wrote a beautiful paper on a defining moment when you experience almost break out in a sweat and maybe even tears, where you come to terms with the fact that you have to move in a new direction. That study paper has become foundational to ours. And then, of course, Larry White. Larry White talks about that park bench where he found himself sitting in, actually, he says this, but once I returned to New York City, where I found myself going most often was to a park bench. I would sit there gazing at the Hudson River and wondering how I would ever make it in society. Well, everybody wants, Larry, to find your park bench when they get out. And we've also, we asked the question, are there any park benches in prison? And most guys have decided that their cell is a park bench, where they ponder the deep and meaningful things of life. And they do that with ceiling time and reflection upon their life. So these are some of the things we do. And then Sincere Wilson. Is Sincere still here? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, he wrote a beautiful paper on the Exodus contract. And he said, in Exodus I learned that a goal without consideration of how to reach it is no goal at all. He said, it's a dream. Writing down my goals is the first step to take and achieve them. He said, today I have a clear understanding of what my parents meant when they said education is the key. It is the key that can open the door to opportunity. However, keys seldom work when there is no knowledge of how to use them. The Exodus contract gives me a methodology and shows me how to use this key to achieve the goals that will pull me into a life-giving future. And so that gives you some idea what we do in our Exodus meetings, wrestling with these study areas. Let me close by giving you, if there are a bunch of preachers here, I'll give you a couple of good sermon illustrations. And one is, and I want to say this in remembering all our great ones who have passed on. You know, we mentioned Bama, we mentioned several others. And they're very much in our memories, and fondly so. Carl shared. I know we held a couple of funeral services at Lonnie's church, and of course Lonnie, you know, just one of the huge, great ones in our history. And I think many of you who were at his funeral, there were 700 people who came to celebrate Lonnie's life and passed on. Let me give you these two illustrations. There's a little church in Switzerland that has no electricity. And they hold their worship service on Sunday night. And they depend on those who come to bring a candle. And they bring their light into the church and they put it on the end of the pew. Now when some of them pass on, there's less light. But there always are those who come after them and bring a new light into the sanctuary. And I think we've experienced that with Exodus. We've seen some of our great ones pass on. But what a great presence the new light is that's in our programs and in those of you who have gone home. The other story I want to share is one that gives us an idea about, at least for me, it gives me an image to get a sense of what Exodus has achieved. Leonard Sweet, a theologian, writes about an experiment that took place at Amherst College. They planted a squash seed in the soil. And as the squash began to grow, they put metal bands around the squash. And what they were experimenting on was to measure lifting power. And after 2 months, they discovered that the lifting power was at 1,500 pounds. And after a month later, it had grown to 2,000 pounds. And then when it reached 5,000 pounds, the squash exploded from all the pressure. But what they found after that was that the roots of the squash had spread 80,000 feet in every direction. Now I want to submit to you as we close today, that's the story of Exodus. Our roots are out there, and you represent those roots.
Before we go, would you lead us in the closing rites, please?
Okay, let's turn to the closing line. We stand before the up againstness in life.
We stand before the hostility of life.
Our life is in our decision to embrace all that is as that out of which our life will come.
We decide that death is life and life is death. We will create a new world by deciding to live the life we have for the sake of humanity.
We thank you for coming. We'll continue to be grateful to Edwin Muller and his ministry. And please, if you want to be part of the elders, let Ed know, let Jackie know, let Eric know, let myself know, just let somebody know before you leave today, or on Facebook, or an email, or whatever works. Let Larry Wright know that you want to be one of these elders. Thank you. Good night, and get home safely.